If you're planning on rebranding and reinventing your personal brand, then make sure you consider your visual personal brand. Today I'm going to share some of the tips that I share with my personal brand coaching clients. So grab your cup of tea and let's dive into it. We love to say that we don't judge a book by its cover. It's a really nice idea, but we do, and the science supports this. It shows that first impressions are formed within seconds. Some research shows that it is actually also formed within a tenth of a second. So what you wear does matter. It contributes to other people's perceptions of you. One study also showed that people that dress more formally are perceived as more competent and more trustworthy. I also want to share a quote that I read in Marie Kondo's book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. This really resonated with me. She said, if sweatpants are your everyday attire, you'll end up looking like you belong in them. There is a concept in psychology known as enclosed cognition, and it is about the way that the physical experience of wearing certain clothing affects us because we attribute certain meanings to certain clothing. And so when we wear certain things, it activates that meaning in our mind. Studies have shown that wearing more formal clothing can actually improve your problem solving and your abstract thinking. This idea of dressing for success might actually then be a cliche that is worth holding on to. Brands are constantly re-evaluating the visual aspect of their brand. So why can't you do that for your own personal brand? Have a look at your personal brand overall and the element of your visual identity. Decide if it is something that you can potentially elevate to another level, or if it is something that you want to be communicating in a very specific way for you. So let's dive into some of the tips about how you can reinvent the visual identity of your personal brand. My tip number one is to mood board your visual identity goals. This is something that I encourage my personal brand coaching clients to do. It is often hard to come up with what you think your visual identity is going to be for your personal brand, but a lot of the time you already have a sense of style that resonates with you. Maybe it is something that is aspirational, maybe it is something that is amplifying something that you already do and that you want to be a more consistent part of your personal brand and your visual personal brand. If you have followed my channel, then you know that I have become a big fan of using Pinterest for all things related to mood boarding and vision boarding, because this allows you to explore ideas and to really collect research about what resonates with you and what doesn't, so that it improves your decision making when you actually go to execute on that thing. For example, I have a personal style board on my Pinterest, and this is what I encourage my clients to do as well. This gives me a chance to see what images are resonating with me and to refine in on this particular thing. This isn't actually unusual for a creative process. This is what most creatives would do. Most designers, most creative directors would start with some sort of mood board, and it makes the whole process a lot easier when it comes to actually launching your visual personal brand identity that you want for yourself moving forward. But I go one step further, and I don't just have a personal style board on my Pinterest. I really like to make use of subboards on Pinterest as well. So within my personal style board on Pinterest, I will have many boards within that too. So if there is a particular thing that I am interested in, I will pin certain things related to that under that category. And these are usually really quite niche. But again, it gives me a chance to refine my decision making in this space, to understand that a lot of what I might actually have on Pinterest may be things that I already own. And then if there is any element of having to purchase anything to contribute to the visual identity that I want moving forward, then I can do that from a really solid place of understanding what I want my visual personal brand to be and what is worth investing in to get the best return on investment for that purchase. What I've personally found is that this approach of starting with Pinterest as opposed to simply just online shopping or heading to the shops to redefine and elevate my personal brand visual identity in any way actually allows me to reduce some of that decision fatigue. And so instead of getting caught up in the consumerism that wanting to level up your visual personal brand can actually create, it actually, I find, has the opposite effect. It makes me really know what it is that I want to be able to filter out. So it clears out all of that noise and clutter of all of the different brands and products that are constantly trying to get my attention, because I know exactly what it is that I want to hone my attention and my focus into. What, when it all comes together, is going to give me the visual personal brand that I want for myself overall. My tip number 2 to reinvent your visual personal brand is to determine your signature elements. Now, a lot of the time, this will be about bringing out something that you already do. You might already have a signature element, something that people know you for. Maybe it's something that they know you for that you don't even realize that you do as much as other people do. For example, if you follow this channel, you might know what my signature color is. This was something that wasn't actually that obvious to me until other people started to point it out. They started to point out how much I wear black, and it became something that instead of feeling like, oh no, I should start to wear more color, I actually found myself leaning into this even more because it was what people had already determined was a part of my personal brand. It's what I enjoyed buying, it's what I felt comfortable in. So I leaned into that signature element more than trying to find an alternative to it and feeling like it was, a potential insult in some way, or that they were saying that I should try and explore other things. I just made it a part of my personal brand. So you might also have a signature color that you have for your personal brand. You might also have a signature color palette. I'd recommend thinking about what both of these could be, because you don't necessarily need to just have one color that you wear all the time. I certainly wear a lot of black on this channel, but I don't actually just wear black in my personal life. I have a palette that I stick to. It's still quite a refined palette, but I do know now at this stage of my life what the colors are that resonate with me and what I enjoy wearing the most. You might also have a signature accessory for your personal brand. I personally love, for example, wearing gold. I particularly love and have for many, many years, love wearing a gold earring. So this has become a part of my visual personal brand. It makes it really easy to know how I can stay consistent and stick to a style that resonates with me. There might also be a signature fabric or texture that resonates with you. For example, you might love wearing silks or satins or suiting or knitted fabrics or anything else that you most resonate with when it comes to the textures that feel good on your body, that make you feel good, and that represent what you want to communicate for your personal brand. You might also have a style that resonates with you in your workday, for example, or in your everyday or in your weekend style, but then also have a style that resonates with you for special occasions. For example, if you had a particular special event that you were going to, what is the style that you might be known for in that space? Defining what that personal style is might help you to show up on those extra special occasions as the version of your personal brand that most resonates with you, so you can feel your best on that occasion. And the idea of your visual personal brand and your signature elements don't necessarily need to just relate to the wardrobe that you have. It can actually relate to other elements too. So it might be your hairstyle. This could be a signature element of your personal brand. Maybe it is the color of your hair. Maybe there is a particular makeup style that resonates with you, or elements of your makeup that you want to have as a part of your personal brand. Maybe it is a particular lipstick color, for example. Maybe it is the way that you do your makeup. There is a lot of ways to define what a signature element of your personal brand might be. In his book, 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene said something that stood out to me. He said, "At the start of your career, you must attach your name and reputation to a quality, an image that sets you apart from other people. This image can be something like a characteristic style of dress or a personality quirk that amuses people and gets talked about. Once the image is established, you have an appearance, a place in the sky for your style. My tip number 3 is to invest in the tools of the trade. I want to be really clear that when it comes to you thinking about reinventing your visual personal brand, is that this doesn't necessarily need to be about spending a lot of money in this space. It could actually be about just understanding what your visual personal brand is and clearing out the clutter of all of the other things that you might have accumulated that you no longer want to distract from the visual identity that you want to have for your personal brand. So really amplifying what might already be at your disposal in your wardrobe or in other elements of your visual identity. But if you are going to spend any time investing in the visual identity of your personal brand, then consider investing in the tools of the trade. For example, you might decide that you want to have a blow-dried hair look every single week and that you are going to invest in the money that costs to do that every week for yourself. And if you can do that and if you have the time and the capacity, then that is absolutely fantastic for you. But you could also look at this as an opportunity to, instead of doing that and investing the money in that space, to actually then purchase a quality blow dryer, for example, and then to actually do your blow dryers at home for yourself using the tools of the trade. Maybe you decide that you want a really elevated makeup look, particularly for your special occasions. Instead of hiring someone to do that for you on every one of those occasions, maybe you invest in more makeup for yourself that is going to allow you to be able to achieve those things. Maybe you decide that you want a brilliant looking beard every day, and instead of going to the barber to tidy this up for you every time, maybe this is about investing in a quality beard trimmer, for example, and having the opportunity to really do that for yourself instead of having to go to the barber to be able to do this for you. When we're starting to talk about the visual identity of your personal brand, this is where you can start to creep into things that may actually come at a high cost. And while you at some times of your life may have the capacity to be able to do this, it's also worth considering the cost of maintaining that in the long term. If, for example, you didn't have the income that you currently always have, would you still be able to do that thing for yourself? Would you still be able to maintain this certain visual identity that you want for your personal brand without actually having to stretch yourself so far? By investing in the tools of the trade, then you reduce your reliance on external sources to be able to achieve what the look that you want for your visual personal brand is. As someone who used to spend thousands of dollars on my hair, for example, every year, I am now really grateful as I've progressed later in life to no longer have the cost that is attributed to the way that I was maintaining my hair when I was younger. And it's worth considering that your financial circumstances might actually change and that you are to some degree reliant on the economic conditions around you as well. This was something that I started to think about more when I read the book The Barefoot Investor by Scott Pape. And he talks about this idea of your mojo. Now, the way that he refers to the discussion around a mojo in his book is that he talks about having this emergency savings account that will help you to get your mojo back if you ever were to fall on hard financial times. Now, I'm absolutely not saying that you need an account to help you with your visual identity in an emergency situation, but what resonated with me in that discussion was this idea of a mojo, and this idea that sometimes when you do fall on hard times that you lose that mojo that you have for yourself. You lose some of that self-confidence that you might be so used to having. And if you get some of that self-confidence from your visual identity of your personal brand, about looking good and feeling good about yourself because you represent yourself in a certain way, then it's worth remembering that if you are reliant on that, then that is going to be a mojo that you want to be able to maintain if you weren't always in the circumstances that you currently are in. So that's why I think investing in the tools of the trade gives you a higher return on investment in maintaining the visual identity of your personal brand. But it's also not enough to just invest in the tools of the trade, which brings me to tip number 4, which is to learn the trade. These days with YouTube and TikTok and everything else, it has become more accessible than ever to get an insight into different trades. For example, going back to my hairdryer example and wanting to have a beautiful blowout every single week, if you invest in the hairdryer, for example, then you might then take the time to invest in learning how to actually use that. Now, no one is saying that you need to become a professional hairdresser overnight, but have a look at YouTube, research on TikTok, and see what the tips are. There are so many creators out there that are providing free content all the time to help you make your life easier and to give you some insider tips into how you can actually make some of these things possible for yourself at home as well. And when you're doing this as well, consider some of the things that you may have always done in a certain way. Maybe you've always done your makeup in a certain way. Maybe you've always done your hair or your beard in a certain way. But by using YouTube or TikTok to just expand your knowledge in this space a little bit further, you may discover that there is a better way to do this, something that is so tiny that can really elevate the visual identity of your personal brand in a way that you may not have actually thought of previously. My tip number 5 for your visual personal brand reinvention is to launch your new look. Now, to a degree, a lot of the reinvention of your personal brand is going to be an ongoing, natural process. But if there is a certain element that you do really want to launch and feel like you are showing up as a new version of yourself, maybe it is a new haircut, then try and attach that to a particular milestone. Maybe there is a special occasion, maybe there is a wedding or something coming up that is the perfect time to try that new hairstyle or that new hair color or something else that you've wanted to experiment with. But if you don't have a special occasion coming up, it could also be as simple as the next Monday of the week or the first Monday of the month or the next time that you go back into the office in a new year. In his book, When, Dan Pink talks about this concept of temporal landmarks. It's what social scientists define as the way that humans navigate time as they would navigate space. We are used to navigating space with the use of landmarks, but we also do this when it comes to time. It's why, for example, we feel a certain way when it comes to the 1st of January. But this idea of a temporal landmark extends beyond the 1st of January. It also can seep into different times of the year. For example, the stats show that the word diet soars on Google on January the 1st, but it's not actually just isolated to January the 1st. It's also seen at the start of the month, at the start of a week, and even after returning from a major holiday. We are naturally attached to what feels like a first as a temporal landmark. So when it comes to the launch of your own visual identity for your personal brand or the reinvented version of your visual personal brand, then what is a first that you might be able to attach this to? Just some ideas of when this could be. Could be the first of a month, which gives you 12 opportunities to do that in the year, or it could be the start of the week, which gives you another 52 opportunities to do that in the year. It could be the start of a new physical season. It could be when you are starting a new job. It could be a work anniversary. It could be another anniversary that you have for yourself. It could be when you have moved to a new location or a new city or a new country. It could be when you are arriving back after a vacation. So try and identify a special milestone that you can have for yourself that gives you just a little bit of a deadline to be able to work towards in terms of building up that courage to be able to launch your elevated reinvention of your visual personal brand. If you like knowing more about rebranding yourself and some of the tips that I share with my personal brand coaching clients, then this episode is actually part of a series. So if you haven't checked it out already, then revisit my discussion around rebranding and reinventing yourself online And in the next episode, I'm going to be sharing more about reinventing the verbal identity of your personal brand. So stay tuned for that as well. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.